So before I get into a presentation sort of thing, has anyone ever heard the term the bolder the action, the more polarized the reaction? This is Mark Manson, who's one of my favorite writers. I know Dan's read it. And it is 100% true. Everything we talk about today, I want you to get out of the mindset of writing pleasantly. Anyone who is going to read something you write and get all upset, fuck them. They were not our audience in the first place. We want to be in one, when people are reading our stuff, we want to be in one of two camps. Love us, we'll buy whatever we're selling, or hate us and not waste our time. If we're in the middle, we are like 99% of the audience. And again, if you believe what Tim Ferriss says, which I do, I live my whole life by, is if you find yourself doing things like everybody else, you are almost certainly doing them wrong. All right, so class participation time. What's this quote mean? Who's going to volunteer a summary?
But it's hard to go for brevity, isn't it? Because to be concise, it's much easier to waffle and write every single idea you have. It's much harder to pare it back and make it really succinct.
Yeah, bang on. So, Vanda, when you go shopping for, I don't know, when someone sends you some advertisement about the latest dresses, skirts, sports gear, whatever you're into, do you read the entire article word for word that they send you? No? Feel free to unmute yourselves as well, guys. If you don't want to talk, you don't have to, but...
No.
No, of course not. Out of, let's say it's 1,000-word letter that they send you, or 1,000-word advertisement. How many letters do you think you actually read? Words do you actually read? Anyone want to hazard a guess?
10?
Yeah. So that was actually a pretty good guess. So I spent a lot of time up in Boston with some of the world's leading eye tracking specialists to understand how humans actually absorb content, because us as writers, as content producers, we've got this idea that every word we write is critical. And to a point it is. Although, do you know that there are almost no studies that show typos, errors, grammatical problems have any impact on conversion rate? Close to zero. Why is that? Because no one's reading it. They're scanning it. So what the eye tracking showed was that just like when someone tries to hit a baseball, their eyes physically can't watch the ball the whole way. They sample, and then we take a swing at where we think it is. And so when we're reading, our eyes are going down the page, picking out keywords, and our brains are hardwired to avoid pain. So anything we think is waffle, anything we think we know and is pointless, our mind immediately cuts out. That is why this quote is so relevant. Because to write something which is short and punchy that people will actually read takes 10 times the amount of time that writing something long and boring does. I love this quote. I actually randomly found this on Google Images. I look forward to my breach of copyright law notice. Problem analysis is new product development. When we're writing landing pages or direct response material, it is that. In a second, we're going to see some examples. I'm going to ask everyone for participation, but just by show of hands, how many websites have you seen where you go to the homepage? Sorry, you can't do that by show of hands. Do the vast majority of websites you go to, or can you imagine a website you've been to recently where you go onto the homepage, you look at the first bit of text, the biggest text, the thing your eye is drawn to, and it says, "We are X." Show of hands, who's seen something like that? We are the best accountants in Australia. We are something. Yep, exactly. Great. If you see that, that company doesn't know shit about marketing. To be fair, that makes up about 98% of global websites and most of what copywriters do, because no one's ever taught them the psychology stuff. So last week you looked at the conversion formula. This is the starting point. When we're writing, when we're putting together product stuff, the question is, what is the customer's underlying problem? Now, one of the interesting methodologies that I use personally, I do not want to know what our customer's solution is. What's a customer, Dan, what were we looking at yesterday? What was one of the customers you were working on?
Basically, they are an outsourced vacation rental management company.
Beautiful. Yeah. So I bet I deliberately didn't go into them because I never do. I got the gist of it, and then I want my creativity to fill in the rest. So I don't want to know that they have more sophisticated software than the competition. I don't want to know that they've got pricing algorithms. I don't want to know all of the facts and features. Why? Because once I know that, everything in my mind is going to selling the features, not putting, and it's harder to put myself in the shoes of their client. So let's jump ahead, Dan, if you want to riff with me a little bit. What is the problem of, who's their major customer? You tell me. Can you tell me? Have you been across this?
What's the major customer of JetStream?
Yes. Who
right
are
now?
they?
Right now it's real estate agents.
Beautiful. Okay. And what is the problem of a real estate agent who's got real estate on their books?
So it's this feast or famine cycle where they're spending part of their time making a bunch of sales, and then they go months and months without it. It's very insecure income.
Okay. Now here's the question. So let's jump to, let's kind of merge these two together to be a skeptic. Does the real estate agent realize that they are feast or famine? Does it keep them up at night?
It very well might. They're afraid that they're not going to have money to pay for their homes, for their families, for food, like living expenses.
Okay, that's interesting, because we're talking about two different things here, aren't we? Already. One of them is a real estate agent able to make sufficient sales consistently? And the other one is a real estate agent able to put food on the table for their family? Now, as writers, as thinkers, we are, what's the word when you conflating the two things, but they're not necessarily combined in our reader's head. And if we try to shove it down their throat, which is what we normally do, we try to crowbar the solution we know is good for them in, their fight or flight kicks in, and they go, no, screw this. This would require too much effort. I'm not reading this shit. And they leave. What's the actually quick audience question? We'll ask everyone for their guess. How many seconds when someone lands on a website are they willing to give it to assess if this is a good solution for them? Start with you, Robert. Just have a guess. I'll give you a hot tip. It's under 30 seconds.
5.
5, Dennis?
1.5.
I like your guesses are very strong. You are equally skeptical with me about humankind. Camilla?
I think it's like 0.29 seconds or something like that, because that's how long Google takes to give you an answer. So I think it's something like that.
You've been talking to my girlfriend. Hava?
I would say 2 to 3 seconds max.
And the answer is, or at least the answer was, 3 seconds. And just to put that in context, because we all have an idea of what 3 seconds is, 1, 2, 3. That was a very long 3 seconds. And if you believe the statistics, in the last 15 years, our attention span has decreased by 85% on average. So this ain't getting longer. Our consumers are pretty much goldfish with thumbs, to quote my one of my old bosses. So if we're not talking directly to their underlying problem, then they are not paying any attention. So Dan, let's come back and riff on this a little bit longer. I'll say another 3 or 4 minutes so we can keep this going. Do you really think, or have we spoken to any real estate agents who got on Google and said, I am looking for a way to turn the real estate I have into a vacation booking? Or something like that. You might need to change the question to make it relevant,
Yeah,
because I don't know the client.
I have talked to a real estate agent, and she said that every real estate agent has thought about getting into short-term rentals and like leveraging their existing client relationships for that. But all of them feel that it's too hard, too much of a learning curve, and they don't want to be a property manager. So they're stuck. They don't know how to do it, and then they don't.
Oh my God. Yeah, we didn't pre-plan this. That was the single best answer you could have given me. Well done. So that, without going into deeper research, let's just pretend that we've done that and 100 people said, yes, that's our problem. That is the problem we're actually solving. It is not how do we do a better vacation rental software for real estate agents. The problem is, or how real estate agents make more money. The problem we're solving is, how can you get in, as a real estate agent, how can you get into short-term rentals without knowing anything? How can it be easy? And ensure, what are they scared of, Dan? So if we go into this sort of thing, if we talk about the emotion and so on, you just said they decide that it's too hard. Why? What are they scared of?
It's gonna take up all their time. It's gonna take time away from doing the things that they love to do, or that they won't be able to fully commit to their job, and they'll make their brokerage upset. Yeah.
Beautiful. And the main reason, and one of the reasons why people are all muted and aren't jumping in here and giving their opinion and telling me my shirt sucks and all of this stuff, because they're scared of being judged. Oh, huge human emotion. You can apply this to just about every client you work with. The fear of being judged. So what happens if I actually do run a short-term rental business. This is one of my side hobbies, so I know a lot about this. When we put ourselves out there, there's a chance we're going to fail. And human beings fucking hate failing. We hate people thinking we're idiots. We hate not knowing. We hate the anxiety of what if. I don't know what corrupted us so badly from our heyday 50 years ago, but for some reason, the concept of taking a chance, of leaving for another job, is anxiety provoking, let alone stepping outside the norm and setting up a short-term rental business. So if we know what we know here is the problem that we're trying to overcome is how to make this easy and how to remove all of those frictions associated with short-term rentals. But this is why it's important that you be a skeptic. So when you get that brief from whoever writes it for you, don't just write to it. That would be craziness, because you're not being judged on how pretty your words are. You're being judged on how effective this piece of work is. So the first thing I ask when someone says, okay, populate this page, is how are people getting to this page? What are they searching for? Is this an SEO term? Is it a paid search? If they're searching for the brand and they know that they're after Jetstream because if you can imagine the buyer decision cycle, they're at the bottom bit and they know the options, they're just trying to choose the right one. That is a very different mindset to someone that's just casually seen an ad that said, hey, do you know if you're a real estate agent, you can make all this money from short-term rental and we make it easy? So be the skeptic on where they are in the buyer decision cycle. And then really put yourself in their shoes and say, what are they angry or scared about? So with Jetstream, Dan, again, riffing off you, do you think these real estate agents have actually tried dipped their toe in the water and tried a short-term rental?
Most of them, I believe, have not.
Beautiful. So then I won't do it now because it'll take too long, but we can jump in and we can say, well, what are they scared about actually happening? Do they have experience? Have they heard other horror stories? And we can start to map those out, because these are going to be our frictions, our anxieties. And the most important thing when you're being a skeptic, if you read about this, would you hand over your personal details? Someone who's not Dan, what are you scared about? And just yell out, don't put your hand up or anything because I can't see everyone. What are you scared about when you hand over your phone number to a company, particularly a gym?
They're just going to spam you all the time.
Oh, shit, yeah. Have you done that with a gym before or a personal trainer?
100%. I have a gym doing this to me right now.
Oh, fuck those guys. I hate them so badly. So there was this point, thank you so much. So there was this point in time where the prevailing philosophy was that you need to harangue your customer. And the research shows that you need to make 7 calls, follow-up calls, before you're going to get a sale. And this has just been accepted in the modern world that, okay, we need to harass people. How many spam emails do you get? Holy shit. Even unsubscribing from every single one, I get at least half a dozen a day. And if, God forbid, you give someone your email address just for a general inquiry, now you're on a 2-year automated email cycle with shit that no human wants to read. So what would that do to human behavior regarding giving our contact details over? It makes us extraordinarily skeptical. And the barrier for handing them over when I first started in this industry was, here's a form, fill it in. Nowadays, people need to be incredibly comfortable before they're willing to. The research actually shows, and this isn't my research, this is Gartner's, that 57% of the buyer journey happens before we are willing to talk to someone from that company. Just let that sink in for a second. 57%. In other words, what's the process we're going through? What we're trying to do is make ourselves feel super, super comfortable before we're willing to go, fuck it, it's worth the chance. I'll give them my phone number, and if they call me, it's worth it, because I'm reasonably certain these guys are at least pretty likely to solve my problems. Now we're going to get back to, as writers, how we can do this. But I think this, if you take away one thing today, this would be the thing, that you're writing to that 57% who will not talk to a salesperson. And your job is to catch their interest enough to read to why this solution solves all their problems and abates all their fears. And if we're good enough at that, then hopefully they'll be comfortable enough to speak to someone, which in the B2B space is generally the next step. SaaS is a lovely concept, but not very reliable. Okay, crowd participation time. I'm getting a little bit off topic. And instead of going around the room, we'll just do it in chat. This is number 1. Number 2, 3, 4, you understand how counting works. I'm going to go through them, and I want you to tell me which of these, in your opinion, is the most effective headline. And when I say headline, I mean anything that your eye is drawn to read. If it happens to be checking out this guy's crutch, then so be it. That's just what it is, because design is part of part of writing. But we're going to go through 4 options, and I want you to tell me which one you think would be most effective in that first 3 seconds. Looking for an alternative to overseas tax services, that's number 1. Legally reduced tax, how to copy the strategies of rich and famous, that's 2. Offshore corporation and banking, go where you're treated best. Now the context is, before you write, this is someone who is interested in going in reducing their tax bill, or maybe going overseas to offshore tax relief, we'll call it. I'll go back through them again quickly. Now you've seen them all in the chat. Please write 1, 2, 3, 4. Which one do you think is most effective at capturing eyeballs and getting them to read further down? So if you chose 2 or 4, you would be correct. But I'm going to go through why 4 is actually not as good as you think it is. So the problem with 4 is, what does that mean? Go where you're treated best. I love that it starts with a verb. We're going to talk about that in a second. That's a writer's trick. Start every headline, every sentence with a verb. But it doesn't actually talk to the solution, the outcome that you're going to get it all. Now, maybe you could say, okay, that's a curiosity getter. Let's see what's further down the page. And I definitely agree we create and implement bespoke holistic strategy for successful investors and entrepreneurs to reduce their tax bills. I'd be bolding that, and doing some of this other shit is good. But in contrast, we know statistically, because we actually designed this and tested the hell out of it, that this is the best performing headline, or at least for these guys, and they do work in the same industry. Legally reduce tax. The core thing that people want to do is reduce their tax, and their main friction is it going to be legal? Am I going to end up in jail for this? And how to copy strategies of the rich and famous, the reason this is effective is because it adds credibility. No one wants to be the innovator. I moved my whole tax structure and everything offshore, and I can't tell, 8 years ago, I can't tell you how many people judged me to my face and told me that I was going to get in trouble and told me about the Panama Papers and all of this stuff. And it was genuinely disconcerting. So this is effective because it deals with that fear. This is the second best by far. So 9 frictions. Let's get back to this. And this all ties into what Dan actually told me yesterday I should have renamed as anxieties. 57% of the buyer decision cycle happens before they're willing to talk to someone. What are the 9 things that we need to soothe in order for someone to feel comfortable? Has anyone read How to Pitch Anything by Clough? No? Okay. If you're going to read one book on how to get better at presenting stuff, it's actually a great audio book as well. He talks about how our brain is millions of years old, and it is hardwired to be like a crocodile. He calls it the croc brain. So we've got this first processing unit that is trying to save us from pain. Now, that makes a hell of a lot of sense in the modern age, because we're hit by something like 2 million advertisements or messages per day. If we tried to absorb and process and rationally go through each of those, it would be impossible. And so this croc brain, it's taking these millions of messages and it's trying to work out what's nutritious, what's important for us, and what is chaff, what's rubbish. And so our job is to try to get past the croc brain, to try to give it easy to absorb information, which grabs its interest and soothes all of these fears. So we're going to go through them now. Why this is important, the other pro forma, when we're writing product pages and direct response pages, the tendency is to write about the features of the product. Quick hands up, who's written a product page and written the vast majority of their stuff around what features the product has, why the product is so good? Almost everyone should have their hand up right now, because that is what we all do. We can't help it. But the truth is, no one gives a damn. They don't give a damn unless that solves one of their fears. And so what we're actually writing to is how it solves fears. And this is the subconscious process, scientifically tested, that our brain goes through to evaluate in a B2B situation, is this a safe purchase? Product performance, wholeness of solution. Does this fully solve my problem? Dan, what did we agree just then in our example was the problem that real estate agents had?
So, I mean, problem that real estate agents have of like they feel like it's too hard to run short-term rentals.
Yeah, it's too hard, it's too scary, it's too risky. Why risk what I have? Oh, it's a great thing. That is also, by the way, if you don't know this, we are far, far more motivated not to lose than we are to gain. It's stunning. If you ever put a bet down on a horse or a casino at the casino and just sense yourself for 1 second, what's the emotion you're feeling? It's not the giddiness of excitement. And this is, again, proven scientifically. Oh, what if I win? I can buy myself a nice dinner. No, it's the fear of losing 20 bucks. And then the relief we feel when we don't lose 20 bucks, if we don't lose. So wholeness of solution is, will this solve every part of my problem? So Dan, the reason I asked that before I went off on one of my lovely little tangents was, if we really want to map out, what does that mean? What does that problem statement of I'm scared to do this because I don't know how mean? What are all the avenues? Does this product solve all of them? And if it doesn't, how can we identify those and at least be aware of them when we're writing? Expertise. Yeah. So is the provider an expert in the space? In the space of making it easy for real estate agents to get into doing this, are they really an expert? Could they guide them, or are they just a SaaS platform?
You know, they are.
They are. Great.
Yeah.
And so, all right, so if we were going to write to that, we obviously can't just write, hey, we're experts. We need to prove it. So how could you prove that they're an expert, that they take real estate agents who have never done this shit and give them a reliable, easy revenue stream?
Well, in terms of just authority, something I have been wanting to weave into their brand story is that they were one of the first companies that Airbnb turns to for like developing some like back-end solutions for, or like one of the first things to integrate into Airbnb. Like Airbnb approached them directly. So there's at least a piece of authority.
That's true.
They have, I mean, case studies, I think, probably prove expertise.
Awesome.
Although that also fits under similar clients.
Oh, I would expect it to fit under several of these. Just, this is a nice little segue, but the same things we come up with right here are going to apply to every client you have. It's a lot like advertising. The channels never change. It's just about how we adapt them into the situation. So yeah, let's go with case study. If we put a case study in with a real estate agent who they had taken from shitty situation of selling 5 houses a year and just being able to put food on the table to within 3 months earning a guaranteed income of, I don't know, what's a lot of money? $2,000, $5,000, something like that, and stepped through each of the phases that person went through and told the story of it, would that be pretty reaffirming to other real estate agents that read it? Would they be like, holy shit, these guys are experts and they make it easy? Yeah, showing that we are experts helps us to guide people through that process. And being an expert doesn't mean, hey, we won this award. That helps, but I want to see myself in those shoes. And so we want to be skeptical about what an expert actually is to a human being. Product durability. So in this instance, we're talking about a service. Is this going to provide me long-term value? Or is it a flash in the pan? A lot of people didn't invest in cryptocurrency because they thought it was a flash in the pan. But you could easily argue that there were lots of websites out there that showed great expertise and all these other things. But there was skepticism around long-term value to the customer. So how can we show that this solution that they're offering isn't just going to last for a few months before everyone catches up or the industry changes regulations? This is for the long term, and you can bank on this for the next 10 years of your future. Pricing. What percentage of B2B websites put their pricing onto the page, the landing page you're on? Very, very few do it. Why don't they do it? They don't do it because they're scared that people are going to see the price and they won't inquire. Coming straight back to the very first thing I said, that defies the first rule of don't polarize. If we want to be loved or hated, they're arguing, no, we want to be in the middle. And back to my first point, fuck that. We want to be loved or hated, and price is so important to human beings. If I'm going to give you my phone number, I do not want you to be ringing up 15 times trying to sell me something for $100,000. I'm not buying it. But if I know that it's $100, I don't mind so much that you might call me 15 times because that's okay for me. So putting the price, or at least putting something that refers to price or implies a price, is really, really important. If the client won't go for it, that is their problem. But if you want effectiveness, it's important. Productive capacity. So what that really means, and this is going through the pockets of timely delivery when we're talking about B2B, if they say, yeah, we can take you, we'll go back to Jetstream, sorry, we can take you from normal real estate agent to being a vacation hotel mogul, how fast can they start the training? How fast can you get on board? Can they actually deliver on everything that they've promised with this setup, or is there going to be giant holes? Will they give you the software and then all of a sudden you're on your own? Or will they give you the software, but then you've got to go work out website hosting? And can this be done today? How long is it going to take me before I'm actually generating income? Often overlooked, really, really important. Similar clients. Oh my God, this one is done so badly. Human beings, I don't know what it is that we love about big brands, but we will go, like Dan said before, I almost jumped all over him until I realized he was right. When he said Jetstream used Airbnb came to them. And I was like, oh, he's fallen into the trap. Because most people will choose a big brand and say, oh, they also work with this big brand. Well, guess who I'm not? I'm not Airbnb, and I'm not a competitor to Airbnb. So personally, I can't relate to that. Luckily, Dan made the right point in the right way, so he was actually correct. But when I see other agency software providers pitch to me, and they'll say, oh, McDonald's uses our software, and it's improved this for McDonald's. I couldn't care less. I'm not McDonald's. But you know who I'm really interested in is this software provider provided their stuff to Flying Cat, and I consider us very similar. And this is the story of how it helped Flying Cat. Well, that's really interesting to me because I want what they have.
I want to ask a question. Why is it that you feel that Airbnb was correct?
Thought you were saying, well, our expertise, we're experts because we're going to have Airbnb's logo on our page. But you were actually using as just a credibility point to say, well, of course we're experts because Airbnb turned to us. We have another client, Australia's biggest vacation rental company that we work with, and they're doing a collaboration with Airbnb at the moment. And all they wanted to do was slap Airbnb on there and say, we're the greatest. Like, are you kidding me? Nobody gives a toss. The only thing they care about is, are they going to make money out of this, and is it safe for their rental? And it was a very, very hard fought battle, but eventually they gave in to maybe 3% of what I was pitching them. But that is that's all part and parcel with it. But Dan, you were absolutely correct in the way that you used it. Customer service, again, massively overlooked. And in fact, let's combine 8 and 9 together because we do them at the same time. Why, when we're doing research on a website, is knowing that there's someone that can talk to us, or if this product is awful, why is that important to us? Why does that make us feel safe?
I think it's because we trust other humans more than we trust brands. Like, brands are always going to say, like, hey, my product is the best, please buy me. But when you actually talk to people that has tried the product, you're going to trust them even more if you don't know them.
Camilla, great answer. Kate, I think, put her hand up. Jump in.
Yeah, it's because everybody hates chatbots.
Oh, shit, yeah. Or worse yet, no chatbot.
Yeah.
Try getting through to Airbnb if you don't know the phone number. It's painful. Or sitting on hold to a bank or a telecommunications provider. And those guys are legally mandated to speak to us. There are so many B2Bs that aren't. So you just can't get onto them. So you put your money up and then you don't know how to use it and it's causing you problems and all that stuff. Yeah, Google. And the reps they do give us, good point, Kate, the reps they do give us to talk to are hopeless. I can't tell you how many I've trained how to do their job. So that's exactly right. So what we want to know is, and what we want to write for customers is, can we, if this is shit, if you've got a problem, is there someone you can get through to today and get an answer? And what will they do for you? And is this guaranteed, or is there a return policy, or is there some certainty I have? Quickly, what are we scared of? Are we more scared, or are we more excited about what we get? Perfect, we're more scared. So this removes the scared. Maybe they don't have a return policy. Maybe they don't have a guarantee. There is something you can write which tells people that I'm not just putting my money down unseen. I'm not going all in on a hand of poker that I've not actually looked at the cards on. Dan and I actually recorded this podcast here, which I will put into the chat because I realize you guys can't touch these notes. This was about a paper which Google funded about the messy middle of the funnel. I usually have no time for the stuff that they publish. It's really flossy rubbish, but this was an incredible paper. And what it showed was how the human decision cycle works when we are considering alternatives. So Dan and I picked the teeth out of it, and if you like me just ranting at the microphone, then you'll love this podcast. But the gist of it was that we like to think that humans will compare 2 or 3 different alternatives and we'll be like, well, this one's pretty good, this one's better, and this one's the best, so I'll choose the best. Absolutely not how it works at all. How it works is, these are all of my frictions, all my anxieties, and if all of them aren't satisfied, then I'm not going to make the purchase. Not only do I not go back and to the second best alternative, I drop out of the buyer decision cycle altogether. Case in point, it took me like 4 years to buy a smartwatch because I just couldn't work out if they could hold Spotify offline for when I go running. Truth be told, I've used that feature twice in the last 2 years. So clearly it wasn't a rational thing. But every time I dropped out of the buyer decision cycle entirely. Landing page effectiveness checklist. Here's a few quick things. Green is good. Whatever color that is bad. First question. When we are writing a headline, is it clearly solving a problem that the customer has? Be a super skeptic. Can we show evidence how we have shown it and that we've shown it for people like us, like you. Facts, stats, testimonials, not hyperbole. Again, we have tested inside and out things like #1 platform for X. Doesn't work. Humans see through that shit immediately. And in fact, it totally undermines what you're saying. It's the fluff that they skip over. So unless it's a fact, a stat, or a client testimonial, it's hyperbole. Get it out of there. Don't have it. Scannability. We haven't got to talk about this at all, but can headlines be on 1, ideally maximum 2 lines? Can they have sort of 5 to 10 words in them? And can each paragraph just be 3 lines or something like that? Humans will not read. So we have to make it as easy as we can. If I get invited back here, I'll do something on how to make stuff scannable. Headlines and subheaders. Yep, 2 lines or less. I talked about that. One of my favorite writing tricks. We can do a whole workshop on this. Write this one down. Set yourself a challenge today. Try writing every headline and starting every paragraph with a verb. I don't know if anyone's heard that one before. I actually made it up, but it works. If you start a headline with like, receive the best education you can, find your organic self. You can't, it's impossible to start with a verb and then write about us, about me. It's impossible to write in the first person. You have to, by grammatical nature, write in the second or third person. And that's what makes it so effective. Hard to explain in just a couple of lines, but I'll do something on it later. And we didn't talk about this at all, but easy next steps. Are we just going for the jugular and asking people to inquire right away? Or do we have some soft conversion points? Things like for the jet stream that Dan was talking about, could we have a conversion point like find out how much you could earn, what people like you regularly earn in the first 6 months? Fill in this form. Tell us a little bit about yourself. We do not have time to go into what makes good copywriting for forms. It's a whole 30 minutes to itself, but it's absolutely critical that you be thinking about that, not just writing to the form that they've given you. Now, here's the shit that we all fall into that totally kills our writing. If the site starts with, we are X, we do this, you know it's a terrible site. Sell the outcomes, not the features. Try to avoid, sure, talk about the features, but if we have time, I'll show you, Dan, in Jetstream, why I think that you've written to the features, not what the features solve for people. Site has to have proof points. This could be 5-star rated, it could be anything, but we need proof points. If you don't have case studies of people like that, you've killed yourself. If you don't mention the price, you've killed yourself. We talked about hyperbole, moving images, scrollers, carousels. Clients love them. They've made you write to them. I know they've made you write to them. Yet every single academic study into sliders, including my favorite from Monash University, has shown that the human eye hates them. And so instead of reading every slide, we deliberately read 0. Conversion rates go down, SEO goes down. Don't write to it. Tell them to remove it from the design. Sliders are one of the worst things a website can have. And of course, the imagery and the design, you can write as well as you want. But if it's a shit design, you ain't going. Doesn't matter what you write. Please, yeah, absolutely delighted. I love doing this sort of stuff, and I love meeting cool people. So please pass along. You're very welcome to add me on your favorite social media. And when you're working on this stuff, if you've got questions and you just want to bounce stuff off someone, do it. Send it across to me. I love, love, love forming relationships. It's the only reason we're on this planet, is to get to know each other and help one another out. So don't hesitate. I'd love to meet each and every one of you.